Okay, everybody, for those of you who don't know, my name is Michael Forrest, and welcome to I Am Possible. Now, before we get going, I'm going to ask if all of you can stay off this top step here. This way nobody blocks the display, and I got a little bit of room to move around, the whole presentation type thing, right? Now, this event here, also if I can direct your attention to the menu wheel in your lower right, or actually left, sorry, you're going to notice a microphone icon at the very top of that. If that microphone icon is clear, that means we can hear what's happening in your environment. So we've gone ahead and turned that to red for now, so that this way, if you have any background noise or like maybe you have a dog barking or something, you're not going to face social ruin back at the campfire by becoming known as the avatar to start barking during the event. Now, you'll notice that just because you're muted, you can still participate by using these emojis. There's one in your menu wheel. It's a pink cheek smiley face. And when you click on that, your emoji panel opens up in front of you, and it gives you a lot of options with which to express yourself. So if somebody shares like a deep and powerful story, and you feel it right here, you can just let it out, just like that. You can show the love. Right? Maybe somebody shares a story where they swung across, quicksand, Tarzan style, and you're very impressed. You can show that by throwing up the applause, right? It's like that, make them feel good. And then, maybe somebody asks you a yes or no question. You can say yes like this because they know like that, or maybe you want to smile because resonating with you, or you want to frown because it's a sad, sad tale, right? Or maybe somebody says something funny. You can express it by doing a silly face emoji type thing here. And then there's this, right? This is not how you ask a question. This is not how you get on the list. This is how you get my attention if something goes wrong. So if I'm moving my hands around here and it looks like I'm talking, but you're not hearing anything, that'd be a good time to use that. Now, if I see just one of them go up, just like Midnight did there, I'm going to keep on going. But if I see 5 of them go up at a time, I'm going to know something's wrong that I need to address, like maybe this display is caught on fire and we really should have rethought that slide. I always use that in all my events. I say when the screen catches on fire, but then we made this, we didn't think about that when we made that. All right, so now this event is a gathering of sorts for us to share stories about times when we ourselves or people we know overcame what we thought was impossible, things that we or others around us didn't think could be done. Doesn't have to be your own story. It could be a story, that someone or maybe a story you read about. It doesn't even have to be in the real world. For example, we had, when we first created this event, we did it as a one-time thing. We didn't think that, we were just going to try it out. We thought there was a lot of negativity in the world, and we thought, it'd be really cool if somebody came here and they were facing like a difficult assignment at school or at work, or maybe they were in a difficult relationship. We thought it'd be cool if they came here and then maybe, they got inspired enough to keep on going, like they were stuck with something and they just, they heard all these stories and they thought, hey, I'm just going to keep on going through it. And, so that's kind of why we started doing this. And then when we started it, look, I have a long history with the word impossible. I really do. It's pretty early in life where, I was growing up in Brooklyn, and there was these, kids that would come up every day and they chase me down this alleyway and they beat me up, right? And they tell me, every day, they go, you're never going to get away from us. It's impossible. And I knew what that word meant, right? That meant it couldn't be done. So, little by little, I stopped trying. I stopped fighting back. I just kind of accepted it, And then one day, a man comes into my father's bar and he's carrying a shopping bag. And, when he had a couple of drinks and stuff, he goes to settle out his bill and he puts this shopping bag up on the bar. After asking my dad, he says, you have any kids at home? And my dad says, yeah, I got 2 boys. And he says, well, they're like this. And he slides the shopping bag right across the bar like that. And my dad looks into it. I think he's thinking maybe there's money in there or something, right? Like a big tip, right? So he looks inside, and inside is a stack of comic books, right? You're really just a whole stack of them. They're all Batman comics, right? This side, right? And then my dad comes home and he slides them, under the bedroom door there. And I took a look at it. And I didn't read this like a kid reads a comic. I read this like an instruction manual, right? So that night I took a school backpack, right? And I took the side pocket and I modified it, right? And I filled it up with these like glass marbles. And the next day, when these kids were chasing me down the alleyway, I was wearing that backpack, right? And they were getting closer and they were getting closer, and I could hear them and feel them coming. And I just reached back and I pulled on that drawstring really hard, right? And all the marbles clattered all over the concrete behind me. And I kept running. And then for the very first time, I made it to the garages. And then I scrambled up the concrete wall on top of the back garages. And I looked back down that alleyway and I saw all these older kids just laying on the floor. They couldn't get out. Every time they get up, they were falling down. And I started giggling. I started laughing really hard, right? And then all of a sudden, I stopped laughing because I realized I had just done what everybody said was impossible. So obviously that word didn't mean what I thought it meant. So what I did was, I wanted everybody to know. So I thought, how can I spread the word? So I went to the library, and now that the statute of limitations is up, I can confess this. I went to the library, and every single dictionary in that building, I blacked out the word impossible. All right, I just crossed it out. And ever since then, I don't really believe in it. Recently, I read that somebody says, that impossible is just a word that we use for something that we haven't done yet, right? And so that's the kind of thing today what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be opening up the floor to so you can get in on this. Let's see, you got the raise hand button that appeared on your lower right. If you press this, you're going to get on my list. Now, so if you have a story that you want to share, that's either your own story or somebody you know or something you read, just press that raise hand button. You'll get on our list. And then between segments and between pauses, because pauses are the natural enemy of the alt space event host, we'll call on you and hand it over to you, and you can share your story. Right. Oh, and be aware though that we are filming this for YouTube. You'll see Raven and I up there. So if you want to be on YouTube, you can just wave to the camera up there. Everybody wave right there. And you get to feel alt space famous. If you just wave at the camera there. All right. So now what we're going to be doing here now is if nobody's on the list, I am going to keep on going. But again, it doesn't have to be about the real world, like the world that we're standing in right now. This is the Ravenhall Forum, and this was designed on an Apple iPad. And it was also, with an old laptop that couldn't run Unity for more than 15 minutes at a time before it crashed. And, during the building of this, my wife and I kept saying that word impossible quite a bit. But here we get to all stand under the stars. It worked out because we kept on going. And very often it's like that. See, I don't see anybody on the list, so I'm going to keep on going. Back in the early days of the U.S., this is one of my favorite stories, actually. There was a gold miner, and, he came into possession of all things, a gold mine, right? Or so he thought. And he kept on, digging, working in there every day. And every day, like, he'd keep on, pushing through. And, and at the end of every day, he'd go into town, into the saloon and have a drink, he'd unwind, and every single day there was a man there that would come up to him and ask him, hey, that mine of yours, I'll take it off your hands if you're willing to sell it to me. And the miner said, oh, there's no way I'm ever going to sell that. There's gold in there. I know it. I can feel it in my bones. And so, day after day, he would come back and the man would always ask the question, will you sell it to me? And every day the miner would say no. And he kept on, it happened every single day. And then one day the miner had one of those days, those days where nothing goes right, where his pickaxes were broken, his fuses were wet, right? Nothing was working out, everything was going wrong. And he was, he was feeling it, he was all beat up, he was all broken, and he dragged himself into that old saloon there. And, the man came up to him and he went to ask the question, and the miner said, fine, I'll sell you the mine, right? So he did, he sold him the mine. Now, a few days later, the miner comes back into that saloon and he sees the man he sold the mine to, and he's celebrating. He's buying everybody drinks. He looks like he's on top of the world. He's having himself just a great time. And the miner went up to him and says, well, what's the occasion? And he says, well, that mine you sold me, we hit gold. And the miner's like, oh, you got to tell me, how close was I? And the man says, well, I only dug about 3 feet. Now, from that moment on, after that, every single time the miner was about to give up, he would always tell himself, I'm 3 feet from gold. And very often life is like that. When you get stuck on something like that, the part where it's the hardest, the part where you're about to quit, that's when you're about to break through, and it's very, very much like that. All right. Now, if anybody else would like to get in on this, just press that raise hand button in your lower right, and you'll get on our list, and we'll call on you, and you can, share a story that's either yours or somebody or, maybe it's a story that you read, or maybe it's something you did in VR, like, you built a world that you didn't think you could do it, and then you did it. Right. Let's see. I got somebody appearing here. Let's see who we have. We have Deadster. What's going on, Deadster? You're on the air.
So, I read this book actually, and it's about
Okay.
sexuality, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not like being gay or anything. It's about like a straight guy hanging out with a bunch of like trans gays, and it's nothing wrong. He just feels like that he doesn't really know how to fit in, and
Okay.
I really connect to that because it's just like something like a gay person with a bunch of straight people. He doesn't know how to fit in, and then one day, boom, they like he tells them, they accept, hooray. And the straight guy, he just feels like that he's not really himself because he doesn't really know how to react with the people hanging around him. And so
Yeah.
in the next chapter, his friend comes up to him and he's like, hey, what's wrong? And he goes, I just don't really know my place here because he doesn't because all his friends are talking about stuff that he doesn't really like, not yet, but more of can't really go with the flow.
Yeah.
And he just feels like that he doesn't really belong with them. But his friend tells him that no matter if you're straight, trans, non-binary, gay, lesbian, you're still our friends. We
Yeah.
will accept you no matter what. And it's not really
Well,
an impossible story. but it's just
Hmm.
don't doubt yourself, overcome it.
Yeah, and it's not to really so much about what's impossible as much as it is inspiring. And you never know what's going to inspire people. And I think one of the hardest things you can do is being yourself without worrying about what other people think. That
Hmm.
and that itself is something that a lot of people would consider impossible. So maybe that is maybe that does qualify. All right, let's see. So does anybody else have anything that they'd like to add? Let's see. We have okay, nobody on the list here. So in that case, I will keep on going. All right. Now, this next one is about a couple that had a small child around. He was about the age of 4. He already knew 3 languages. He was a real special kid, and his parents were really proud of him. But then they started to notice that, the boy started slurring his words. He started bumping into things. He had just started school, and he started having problems with the other kids. Started getting in fights and stuff. And they knew, this wasn't our son. So they took him to the doctor, and the doctor suggested, maybe since the father traveled around a lot, that he'd pick something up and kind of brought it home to the family. So they gave him test after test after test, and they finally diagnosed. They finally found out what the problem was. They diagnosed him with something I have no business trying to pronounce, but it's commonly known as ALD. Right? It's an easier way to say it. And the doctors told him that there's no cure for this, and your son's probably not going to live beyond a couple of years. And they told him to go home and spend as much time as you can with them and just learn to accept it. And then they gave him a support group. They said, here's a support group, and the parents were like, no, they refused to accept it. And the doctors, basically told them, listen, you got to come to terms with this because this is going to happen. Right. And so they even had the support group come to the house to try to convince them that, not to fight against this because they were contacting doctors. They were, looking for, second and third and fourth opinions anywhere they could find it. And now this couple, they only had a high school education with regard to math and science, and they started going into libraries and started reading medical journals. They started, going through all this material, and gradually over time, they slowly learned the language of math, of science, chemistry. And what they did was, they came across an oil, all right, and that had a property that separated fats from the blood, so the lipids from the blood in a certain particular way that they thought would be beneficial to their son's case. And the doctors told them, you're just lay people, you don't know what you're talking about. But they said, they started adding this oil to the son's food, and then they had his blood tested, and they found that gradually, slowly, over time, the progression of the disease was starting to slow. And so they started contacting all these chemists, asking them if they could produce this, refine this oil for them. And this is back in the mid '80s. This is like the early days of the internet, so that there was email access wasn't common. So they were doing this all with like letters and expensive phone calls, and they contacted over 100 chemists. And then one day, the letter landed on the desk of a chemist, and it was his very last day of work. All right, he was about to retire, and he read the letter, and he felt inspired by it. He felt touched by it, and he wrote them back saying, "I'll make this oil for you. I'll do it, but we're gonna have to call it something." So they named it after the son Lorenzo, and it became known as Lorenzo's oil. They even made a movie out of it, right? And what happened was they started giving this oil to the son, and it stopped the progression of the disease. The son lived to the age of 28, where he died of pneumonia that was related to complications that he got from the disease. But had he gotten the oil earlier, right, he may have lived even longer. And with that in mind, the parents actually kept on going with raising awareness about this. And now, when people, are diagnosed with the ALD, they're given this oil, and in many cases, they get to live like a much longer, fuller life. And up until the death of the parents, the medical establishment kept saying that this is impossible. This is black medicine. That this isn't right. And in recent years, they're starting to say, well, there is something to it. And now, and they're actually researching why it is that this particular oil actually affects the disease in the way that it does. And this is all because two ordinary people refused to give up. It's all because two ordinary people said no, and to that word, impossible. All right, now, if anybody else has a story they'd like to share, it can be their own, or it can be of someone they know, or it can, doesn't have to be about the real world. It could be in VR as well. Just press that raise hand button. It'll get you on our list, and we'll call on you. Let's see, I have one here. Let's see, who do we have? We have Deadster again. What's up, Deadster? You're on the air. I feel like a radio show host when I do that.
When you were talking about the movie things, it actually reminded me of Ford versus Ferrari. If you've seen that movie, I watched
I'm
it
not
not too
sure.
long
What's it
ago.
about?
It's about this Italian company that makes Ferraris, and there's this race going on, and their top competitor is Ford, who's not really the best company at making race cars. And
Mm-hmm.
so these two guys team up with Ford to make the best car, and every time they build one, it either isn't fast enough, it blows up, or both. But the driver knew that if he couldn't do this, there would be serious consequences for his family. And even
Wow.
though it practically looked impossible, he got the car working. They went to the race. He almost lost, but he knew what he had to do and he won. And at the end of the day, his title got stolen, but it doesn't matter because it's not about winning something. The fact that he achieved the impossible and beat one of the most undefeated race car companies ever, it was amazing. And
Yeah,
this was based on a
for
true
sure.
story because, as far as I know, America, because of that driver, has only won one of those races, and that was back in
Wow.
1967.
That's cool.
Good
I
movie,
like that.
recommend it.
Yeah, yeah, I'd like to check that out. That's pretty awesome. All right, let's see. We also have Midnight, who just disappeared, but is still on the list for some reason. Okay, let's see. Are you still around here, Midnight? No, I don't see. Okay, but yeah. So let's see. Do we have anybody else on the list here? No, it says one, but no, still Midnight, who is not here. I don't think. I don't see them. Okay. All right. So let's dive into another one here. This one is about the, speaking of what your story reminded me of, is one of the ones we also tell regularly here is when the U.S. first went into the discus event in the Olympics, right? They wanted to make a good showing because it was the very first time they were competing on the world stage, for this event. And, so they trained really hard and they were comparing themselves against the known records that at that time had been what was believed to be the absolute best of human potential. Like nobody had, touched or come near one of these records in many years. And they had, kept training and training and training, but they couldn't get anywhere close to it. And it was to the point where they thought, we're going to go to this thing and we're going to embarrass ourselves, but they kept on, they kept on training, kept on pushing. They didn't give up. And then they came to the point where we're at least going to show up. We'll just do our best. And then they, got to the event and they checked their discs in with the Olympic Committee, and the Olympic Committee said, you can't use these, right? These aren't regulation discs. And they're like, oh no, what are we going to do? And then, the Olympic Committee said, don't worry, we'll give you some discs, the regulation, you can use those. So they gave them the discs, and they went into the event and they went to warm up and train. And even in training, they started breaking records, right? And it was because the discs that they were using were so much lighter. I mean, these days it's common practice to use heavier weights to train with, but back then nobody did that. They only used the regulation discs, the official discs. And so when the event started, they just shattered record after record, and and it completely changed the record books. And they achieved, what people had thought before was impossible. And they kept on going, and that's kind of a cool thing. All right, now if anybody else would like to share a story that's either their own or someone they know where they overcame things that they or the people around them didn't think could be done, just press that raise hand button. We'll get you on the list, and and you can do that. All right. So otherwise, I'm going to keep on going because, like I said, off-base event host, natural enemy is the pause. Can't handle it. All right. So I'm going to keep on going then until somebody presses that button. Let's see. I'm going to share one from my own life, actually. This is back in my late. Actually, wait. Hold on. We got someone coming in here. Who do we have? We have Hummingbird. Hummingbird, what's up? You have one?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
It's kind of a silly story. You probably will think it's silly, but it
We
has to
like
do
silly
with
stories. Okay.
I have a couple of kids, grown
Mm-hmm.
kids, who got involved in VR
Yeah.
themselves. And for a long time, they tried to get me interested.
Yes.
I had absolutely no interest. It just didn't. Somehow or other, I got a hold of a headset, and
Yeah.
now I love it. The
Awesome.
whole idea is something that I thought would be impossible. I
So
never
they
thought
forced
I
you to
would.
do it.
They forced me to do it, but I really like it.
Oh,
I'm glad
good.
they did.
Well, oh, yeah.
It's kind
Okay.
of silly,
Good.
but
No, it's not silly at all. I think that's great. It's sometimes, like how people come into VR, you never know how you're going to react that first time you put on a headset. Might be something that you think
yeah.
sounds really neat. Maybe it's not for you because you're busy, or, maybe you think it's awesome. Maybe it changes your life. Like everybody's got a different story about how they
Oh, I
came to
don't
it.
know
I think it's
about
pretty
that,
cool.
but
Well, no, it could. It could. You
yeah,
never
well,
know.
sure.
All right.
Depends
So
on
let's see.
what you
Who else do
use
we?
it for.
Yeah, that's true. Let's see. Who else do we have here? We've got somebody else on the list here. We got Fury. Fury, what's up? You're
Yeah,
on
I
the,
mean,
you're on the,
this isn't a story as much as it is that leads me to an interesting question. I was hoping maybe we could open up the floor and maybe everybody could discuss how they first came into VR or what VR means to them. I think that might be
Yeah,
interesting.
cool idea. Let's do that.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to open up everyone's microphone there. So if you want to, you can unmute and add into it. And everybody want to share how they first got into VR, feel free. That's a cool idea, I think. Change it up a little bit. Anybody? Anyone want
I mean, for my own part, I'll start. I mean, for my own
to?
part,
Okay.
I'm a little bit like Hummingbird. I wasn't really all that interested.
Okay.
But but I've been mucking about for about a year now. I've been world building. I've been learning all kinds of new skills. Hopefully, it'll
Nice.
segue into some new possibilities on the job front. We'll see.
That's cool. That
That's what it
sounds,
means
whoever
to
forced
me.
you guys sounds like a real monster.
Yeah, he's
He
pretty
probably has
awesome.
really not scared though. Yeah. Probably.
And the
I don't know.
Fury built some beautiful worlds too.
Yes, she did
Well,
actually. There's Lake Ravenhall. That's a really good one. She helped build the Ravenhall Flight Academy. If you guys haven't seen
I
that,
helped to
actually,
build this one.
Building this, right?
This one.
and this
This
one that
one.
we're standing in. Yes, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And so that's there
Beautiful.
too. All right. So if anybody else would like to, either tell a story about how they overcame impossible odds or how they got in VR, that's a good one too. Feel free to jump in because we still have a couple minutes left. Okay, nobody feels like talking. That's cool. All right, so let's see.
Oh
So
well, it was worth
before
a
we
shot.
finish up, wait, what'd you say?
Good
Sure.
idea.
I said, oh well, it was worth a shot.
No, yeah, absolutely. I think the stories about how people got into VR are pretty interesting, actually.
Yeah.
All right, so
Wow.
before we head out, I'd just like to
Oh, Ev,
thank everybody. What was that, Fury?
I think Ev's tried. Ev, were you saying something? I'm sorry. You're a little low. Yeah.
Oh yeah, sure. Actually, if you hit that raise hand button, I could put you on megaphone so we could all hear you. I didn't hear you so good as I was over there at the time. Yeah, put you on megaphone there. So just press that raise hand button on your lower right. There we go. Now you're a megaphone. Everyone will be able to hear you. What do you have for us?
Okay, I actually learned about VR through an internship, and it was
Oh, cool.
pretty interesting. Yeah, we took a 3D image of a tornado scar, and we were looking at whether it had caused more damage or if it actually helped out. And in a way, it actually helped out the tornado. So it was a really interesting internship, actually.
Oh,
And then
cool.
Sounds
I
it.
bought one myself for personal
Oh,
use.
wow. That's pretty cool. I like
Yeah.
that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
Wow.
All right. So, listen, before we head out today, we end our events by taking everybody flying. And we're going to do it in a way, right, that I once thought was impossible. All right. Because I started working on this when I had that tablet that this word was
Oh
designed in.
yeah.
You'll see here that we have these
Exciting.
two buttons. Now, when I press this button here, the top button here, you'll see one of the Ravenhall Talon hovercrafts come in. If you've ever been to the Ravenhall Flight Academy, these are ships that you can fly around in. And you're going to see one of them come up over that wall, and it's going to fly across the forum, and it's going to touch down right on that landing pad over there where the stairs are, right? So we're going to go ahead and give that a shot. But before we get going, if you enjoyed today and if you enjoy our content, if you go to altvr.com, you're going to see where it says channels. If you click on channels, you're going to see a bunch of Altspace event channels. And there you'll see Ravenhall events, like it says on that back wall. And you'll see our event page there. And there's a subscribe button. If you guys press it, you'll let Altspace know that you enjoy our content. And we don't get paid to do this, so it makes us feel good whenever we see that number go up. It's a great way to say thank you. So that being said, all right, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to push this button here. I'm going to thank you all for coming. You've been a great audience. I got stuck on the screen. Okay, cool. Let's push the button. Here we go.
Ravenhall Talon aircraft en route to your position. Please stay clear of the landing pad. Thank you.
And if you direct your attention to this wall, you'll see it coming up.
It's
There we
coming.
go.
There it is.
There it
I
is.
see it.
Yeah, here it comes. Very cool. And now you can fly these if you like at the Ravenhall Flight Academy. You can give these a chance to turn it flying if you like. And it comes down here over the stairs, and we just walk on up. and go
Talon
into the teleport.
aircraft is now boarding for transport to the Ravenhall Flight Academy.
Genius.
Please step into the blue light. Thank you.
Hey, everybody. I'll see you at the Ravenhall Academy. And remember,
Go
while I
to
don't
the
believe we're
light.
impossible, I do believe in all of you. Thanks for joining us.